NFL players don't get paid quite as much as people think. The average NFL salary in 2017 was $2.7 million, but that figure is significantly affected by the handful of superstars making $20 million a year. The typical NFL player does not make anything close to $2.7 million. The median NFL salary is about $860,000, and the league minimum salary for players in their first 3 seasons is way lower than that. In 2018, the league minimum was $480,000 for first-year players, $555,000 for second-year players, and $630,000 for third-year players. And keep in mind, the average NFL career only lasts 3 seasons. You'd think those figures would be sobering for young guys starting out in the league. To know that you're probably going to make $1.665 million playing football, and then you have to figure out how to make that last for the rest of your life. You'd think that might encourage dudes to tone down the spending and stop trying to be ballers so hard. But no, most young NFL players don't think that way. These guys work their butts off to get where they are. A lot of them come from families that struggle financially, and they're young, which is to say relatively immoderate and short-sighted. So when they get to the NFL and the paychecks start rolling in, these dudes start spending it on kinds of things they always dreamed about. And I'm not just talking Range Rovers and Rolexes either. NFL players have a penchant for blowing insane amounts of cash on lavish parties. Parties that often involve expensive booze and lots of women. And not just any women. Women who quite often are getting paid to do all sorts of things. Whether it's removing their clothes and dancing or way more than that. Yes, obviously I'm talking about strippers and prostitutes. NFL players love to party with strippers and prostitutes. The league and the players try to keep it under wraps, but stories of wild sex parties leak out every once in a while. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. In a 2010 interview with ESPN the magazine, former Chiefs wide receiver Dwayne Bowe told a very interesting story about something that happened during his rookie season with the Chiefs. Bowe said that during a 2007 road trip to play the Chargers, some of his teammates rounded up a bunch of women on social media and flew them all out to San Diego so Chiefs players could, well, nobody ever specifically said what the players did with the women, but it's assumed that they engaged in activities of sexual nature. According to Bowe, the girls occupied an entire floor in the team hotel. Players would visit them in their rooms, and the girls knew everything about all the guys, flattering them, asking them about their grandmas, wearing their jerseys, sitting on their laps, and, use your imagination here, people. Bowe didn't explicitly say this was something Chiefs player did on a regular basis. However, he did say they called the practice importing, which certainly suggests that they'd done it more than once. At first, his story was big news. However, it eventually faded away, and we never heard another word about importing. Why? Because everyone else allegedly involved refused to talk about it at all with the media. And because whatever went down in San Diego went down in the privacy of hotel rooms. Now that wasn't the case with the granddaddy of all NFL sex scandals. The Minnesota Vikings love boat scandals. When the Vikings decided to throw an orgy, not after the season, not even during training camp, but in the middle of the 2005 NFL season, they didn't rent out a private room at a strip club. They didn't have it at somebody's house. No, they chartered a couple of boats and had their sex party on quiet, picturesque Lake Minnetonka. Those waters are supposed to be purified.
Why don't you purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka? Good.
In front of at least 6 employees of the boat charter company. Like, they saw everything. And they gave accounts to the police that became things of legend. We'll get to those accounts in a few minutes. But first, let us set the stage. You see, part of what made the Vikings floating orgy so outrageous, aside from all the crazy sex stuff, was the timing of it all. The Vikings had absolutely nothing to celebrate 5 weeks into the 2005 season. The team was a total dumpster fire. They had 5 turnovers in a 24-13 loss to the Bucs in week 1, and 3 of them were interceptions from Dante Culpepper. Things got worse against the Bengals in week 2. Culpepper, a Pro Bowl quarterback in 2004, threw 5 interceptions, bringing his total to 8 in just 2 games, and the Vikings lost 37-8. Things got a little better in week 3 though, when the Vikings got their acts together enough to beat the Saints. But the Vikings were back to being trash in week 4, losing to the Falcons 30-10. The Falcons put up 285 rushing yards against the Vikings in that game, while Dante Culpepper was sacked 9 times and threw 2 more interceptions, bringing his total through 4 games to 10. Things could have been going way worse for the Vikings. They could have been 0-4, but things were still pretty bad. The fans were disgusted, the coaching staff was disgusted, head coach Mike Tice was on the hot seat. Luckily, the Vikings had a bye in week 5. The break was supposed to give them a chance to rest up, clear their heads, reset, and right the ship. But the players had other ideas, and that did not involve resting at all. You see, the Minnesota Vikings had themselves a long-standing bye-week tradition called the Rookie Party, and the idea was very simple. All the rookies put a bunch of money into a pot, and the veterans used that money to put a little shindig on for the team. The Rookie Party had been going on for years. Former players say it was getting crazier with each passing year. Then cornerback Fred Smoot joined the team as a free agent in 2005, and, well, that pushed things over the edge. Smoot had what you would call a larger-than-life personality, and he still does. The dude is gregarious, he's funny, he commands the room, he likes to party, and this is key. He has very little shame. Fred Smoot sounds like me. When the venue that the team had previously used their rookie party for didn't work out, Fred Smoot was like, hey guys, why don't we rent some boats? This is the land of 10,000 lakes, right? Oh, also, let's get a bunch of prostitutes. So, that's what the Vikings did. Smoot defensive end Lance Johnstone made the 45-minute drive out to Lake Minnetonka, where they chartered 2 boats from Allen Alma Supper Club and chartered cruises. They put down deposits on their credit card, the party was set. The owners of Allen Almas had no idea what they were getting themselves and their employees into. The first sign that something was amiss on Lake Minnetonka came at 9:20 p.m. on Thursday, October 6, 2005. That's when the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department received a call from a Lake Minnetonka resident who said that 7 black men just got out of a limo and urinated on her lawn and were now sitting at Allen Almas. This wasn't after the cruise, it was before the cruise. The boats were supposed to depart at 8:30 p.m., but the players arrived late, so the first boat didn't leave the dock until 9:30, and the second left 10 or 15 minutes after that. Of course, the police didn't actually go to Allen Almas on October 6th. Apparently, they didn't think 7 guys peeing on somebody's lawn was worth the effort. As a result, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department didn't hear about the debauchery on Lake Minnetonka until Sunday, October 9th, when they were contacted by the charter company's lawyer. At that point, the police interviewed 6 employees from Allen Almas who were on the boats that night, and the stories they heard would blow up into one of the wildest sex scandals in the history of pro sports. Now, the stuff you're about to hear is taken directly from official legal documents, and it's all in legalese, which makes it kind of hilarious, but it's still extremely graphic. So if you're at work or near any other person, really, now would be a good time to put on your headphones. Okay? You ready? Good, let's go. Employees of Allen Almas told police that everything seemed normal when they left the dock, but that changed once the boats were out on the open water. At that point, employees noticed that many of the female guests went below deck and started changing into skimpy outfits, or in some cases, no outfits at all. From there, things just got worse, or better, depending on your personal values. According to the official police report, employees saw running back Mo Williams, and I quote, in the area by the downstairs bathrooms receiving a lap dance, which involved the dancer dancing bare-breasted, and Mr. Williams with his hands on and touching the breast of his female partner. End quote. Employees also saw quarterback Dante Culpepper, quote, receiving a lap dance from an unidentified naked female. During this lap dance, Mr. Culpepper placed his hands on the naked buttocks of the female dancer, end quote. Okay, so lap dances? That's not so bad, right? It's just buttocks. Well, there's more. According to the police report, employees saw offensive tackle Brian McKinney, quote, pick up a naked woman, place her on the bar lounge, and commence to perform oral sex on her. Quote, at a different time during the evening, witnesses saw Mr. McKinney along with 3 other unidentified males receiving oral sex from 4 women while the men were seated in deck chairs on the boat. So yeah, that's bad, but there's still more. According to the police report, and this is the most graphic part, Fred Smoot, quote, was seen holding a double-headed dildo and moving the dildo while each end was inserted into the vagina of 2 women who were lying on the floor near the lounge area of the charter boat. After a period of time, one of the women got up and Mr. Smoot continued to manipulate the dildo inside the other woman. Again, those are the official statements given to the police. It's just what the charter employees saw with their own eyes. Who knows what else might have happened on the boats? The Love Boat voyage was supposed to last until midnight because that's what the players had paid for. However, when crew members told the boat captains what was going on, the captains were like, nah, this party is over. So the boats turned back and arrived at the dock about an hour after departing at roughly 10:30 p.m. According to a lawyer for the charter company, there were roughly 90 people on the two boats when they pulled away from the marina that night. The initial police report said employees of the charter company could identify 17 players in attendance. However, the subsequent investigation by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department identified 30 players. Now, if there were 90 people on those two boats and 30 were players, that leaves 60 people unaccounted for. Fred Smoot, the only person involved in the Love Boat scandal who has ever been willing to talk about it, at one point claimed that there were at least 100 prostitutes at the party. Actually, Smoot said they weren't prostitutes, but rather strippers, a distinction that probably didn't matter much to the wives and girlfriends of the players involved. Regardless of whether they were strippers or prostitutes or some category of professional sex worker in between, Smoot later lowered his estimate to 55, which is at least plausible, albeit unlikely. And while we're on the topic of Fred Smoot and his recollection of the Love Boat scandal, it's pretty hilarious what things he has been willing to confirm or deny, or in some cases not quite deny, but also not quite confirm. As we've already made clear, the dude has flat out bragged about the number of professional women on the Love Boat. He's legit proud of that, but Smoot has denied that they were prostitutes. Smoot also denies the single most salacious detail of the entire story, that he manipulated a dildo inside a stripper. However, he doesn't deny that dildos were part of the evening's entertainment. In fact, Smoot admitted to handing one stripper a dildo when she asked for one. You know, like a gentleman. Smoot also has not denied the story about Brian McKinney receiving and performing oral sex. In fact, on multiple occasions, when asked about that allegation, Smoot took it as an opportunity to explain that where he comes from, in Mississippi, in case you were wondering, they call performing oral sex on a woman running through an okra patch. One thing Fred Smoot has flat out denied about the Love Boat scandal is Dante Culpepper's involvement. Smoot says that of everyone at the party, Culpepper was the one guy who acted tastefully that night. Because the police weren't contacted about the Love Boat until Sunday, October 9th, most of the players didn't know they were in any trouble until the team reported back for practice later that week. And oh boy, were they in trouble. Police weren't just looking into misdemeanor charges of lewd behavior and public indecency, because many of the women had flown in from out of state. Federal law enforcement was also looking into serious felony prostitution charges. Needless to say, Vikings ownership wasn't happy that this was how their underperforming players had decided to use their bye week. On Friday, October 14th, the team owner delivered what Sports Illustrated called an intense profanity-laced speech to the players involved in planning the party. According to the players who were there, calling it a speech is probably too kind. They say he ripped into them for 45 minutes, lips quivering, tears of rage in his eyes, threatening to cut dudes from the team. In the end, the Vikings didn't cut anybody from the team. However, over the next 6 weeks, the Vikings were the laughingstock of the NFL.
What if I'd have been on that boat? It'd really been some problems, wouldn't it?
All right, man, thanks.
Late night talk shows and sports talk radio made fun of them nonstop, and Panthers receiver Steve Smith famously mocked the Vikings with a robo touchdown celebration in Week 8 of the 2005 season.
The boat rowing could have something to do with the Vikings party on two boats on Lake Minnetonka.
As for the legal side of things, none of the felony charges ever came to fruition because there wasn't enough evidence. However, on December 15, 2005, 4 players were slapped with misdemeanor charges of indecent conduct, disorderly conduct, and lewd or lascivious conduct. Those 4 players were Fred Smoot, Brian McKinney, Mo Williams, and Dante Culpepper. Police said they would have filed charges against more players, but witnesses weren't able to identify anybody else by name. Eventually, perhaps due to statements from Fred Smoot, the charges against Dante Culpepper were dropped. However, they stuck for the other 3 players who all pled guilty. Mo Williams was convicted of the charges in April 2016. The month after that, Smoot and McKinney pled guilty to disorderly conduct and being a public nuisance on a watercraft. They were each fined $1,000 and sentenced to 48 hours of community service, which is pretty good considering they basically threw an orgy in front of a bunch of teenage caterers. So what about the rest of the 2005 season? The Vikings were a miserable 1-4 before the boat orgy, and obviously, the Love Boat scandal was such a huge distraction, they weren't going to get better in the middle of the season, right? So things just completely fell apart after the bye week, and the Vikings finished dead last in the NFC North. Right? Right? No, it's not what happened. The Vikings lost 2 of their first 3 games after the Love Boat scandal broke, and in the third, Dante Culpepper suffered a season-ending knee injury. However, after that, they rattled off 6 consecutive wins under Brad Johnson. Overall, the team would go 8-4 after the Love Boat scandal to finish a respectable 9-7 overall, which was good for second place in the NFC North. And despite all the ridicule and all the legal troubles and the wrath of the owners, did the Love Boat scandal actually bring the 2005 Minnesota Vikings together? If the answer to that is yes, it's not to say more NFL teams should get into the habit of throwing wild sex parties. On the contrary, young players should be encouraged to invest that money into their future. They should be encouraged to put their money into a nice, stable IRA instead of somebody's G-string. But at the very least, you can't say the Love Boat scandal hurt the Vikings' on-field performance at all.